Yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about today, but
No?
I guess it's Real Estate Unscripted, so.
We can talk about what lenders are doing to help out with the market, that whole ecosystem, right? Because I think people, one huge learn for me um, about this, just the entire industry, right? You have to be in touch with all the different, I would guess, all the other different departments that work within the industry, right? All the different organizations that work within the industry. And just because you hear this one thing, oh, market's hot, doesn't mean that this industry is just dead, right?
Yeah.
Rates are going up. Doesn't mean this industry is dead. So what do? You have to reach out to all the other organizations and just be in touch with them.
Yeah.
Lenders. What are you doing, right? These people run multi-million-dollar organizations. They have salaried staff. They're not just like ramping up, riding the wave of a hot market and then being like, I let you all go. We have no other. Although some people are.
Yeah. So I was talking to Adam about that yesterday.
Is he letting?
Well, no. They're committed to keeping everybody on staff, but he said like the major institutions, like the loan depots and all that stuff, like they're going to be in a situation where they're going to end up having to lay people off.
It made no sense to me. It made zero.
In terms of laying people off? Or
of adding so many.
Yeah.
It's, in my opinion, Adam actually was on my mind too, because I know he bought extra space and had other people, and I get it. It's almost like the getting is good. It's just like when you watch Shark Tank, right? And you watch it from like last season, and you see somebody has this product of selling bread or baking bread product, right?
Yeah.
Of course it did well during COVID.
Of course.
But what is it gonna do now after COVID, right? Everybody's forgotten about that. Screw those extra languages, the home equipment, the prices for everything have, gone to mellow out. Demand, production has started to meet demand with all of that. People aren't really needing it anymore. And so I felt the same thing about our industry. So when I hear somebody ramping up and adding all these extra agents, all these extra team members and support, it's like, is this for 6 to 9 months?
Exactly.
Or what? Or are you just adding it? And so in my previous experience working in corporate world, that's when I reached out to staff companies, temporary staffing companies. I need this position just for 6 to 9 months to ride this hot wave, right?
Yep.
Ride that hot wave, and then you're not letting anyone down at that particular point, right? And also you're not extending yourself and buying bigger office space. You're just pulling that all in, and you're just bursting at the seams until you can actually see a good solid 2 to 4 years ahead of you. And then that's when I'll open up leases and extend and hire staff and come up with salaries and bonus structures and things of that nature. So I did see that who let off 150 employees the other day. Some big bank
company.
let off 150, and I was like, eek, ow.
Well, the interesting thing with that is like Chase has been doing that for a while, where they've been really trying to go super lean. And if you go like, I bank with Chase for all of my accounts, but if you go into like a Chase location now, like you would think it's like a skeleton staff. I was there the other day. There was like 5 people there.
Yeah.
Right. There was a private banker. There were 2 tellers, and then there was 1 other person in an office, and then another person in a desk. That was it.
Yeah.
Nobody else in there. And so, granted, there was probably 5, 10 people, not even 10. I'd say less than 10 people that came in over the time that I was there. So, like, if you think about like how everything was going, it kind of makes sense, right? Don't continue to scale up, but like keep it at a level where you can be relatively even with it. But the other thing that they were doing is putting, the electronic ATM like right there inside the store, and they're guiding you to that. Like you come in, you're like, hey, I want to make a withdrawal. Cool. Go to that machine over there, do your thing. Hey, I want to make a deposit. Awesome. Go over to that machine and do your thing, right? Like they've been pushing that for a little while, but it's like you're saying in terms of like people scaling drastically, like it's interesting because you're going to start to see a shift. Like we just got reports like, and I didn't look at all the details yet, but Walmart and Target, 2 major retailers that both reported that their numbers were down, right? If you think about what was going on during COVID, like you were saying, where people were buying all of these items and doing all this stuff at home, it was also buying a bunch of stuff for the house, right? Because we were sitting at home more. And now if people aren't doing that, at least as much or spending as much on that stuff, then now they've got an abundance of inventory. So it was like, it was either Target or Walmart that had reported that they had to do a write-off on their inventory because they had an abundance of inventory still in their warehouses.
In my opinion, it's bad inventory management, right? Bringing it all back into, real estate, these waves just don't last forever, right? And there's no need to get discouraged if you are either a seller or a buyer, and you have a life event that's coming up, or just a motivation, or you just want to go sell or buy properties. We still have products and we still have avenues to explore, whether the interest rates are high, interest rates are low, housing market, properties are going for $20,000 over. We still have a way to help everyone, either secure an asset or sell their asset. Yeah. It's not one of those, oh my God, this is going crazy, like we should not do anything or not buy assets or sell assets. Yeah. The difference between hearing about Walmart and all those inventory levels is we always have our thumb on the pace in terms of like, where is this going? We're thinking 3 to 6 months out, 6 to 12 months out. And we're doing that by meeting with the lenders, doing all of our research, looking at what current inventory is, doing our surveys, our studies, meeting with our teams, our partners, and, having our thumb on the pulse of this whole entire industry. And it almost is like a shame on you. Who would expect to keep revenue dollars? No company should be looked at negatively if this quarter, if Q1 or Q2 of 2022, there's a decline in revenues
versus 2021.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, oh yeah, sure, that's what's expected. If you thought you were gonna ride that wave and just be quadrillionaires right, for the rest of your life, something's wrong. Like you're doing, and that's what happens. You have that impulsive. People are just doing things impulsively. Like, how am I feeling now? I'm feeling like I got a lot of calls. I need more people to answer those calls. I need more space for those people, right? And people just impulsively work that way, right? And then it puts themselves in a situation where they're not providing good service and really doing the justice to their actual service offerings, right? By being impulsive and not planning ahead and planning accordingly and kind of adjusting. Yeah. Which, reminds me of a conversation I had like in the last 24 to 72 hours with a client that I've been working with for over a year now, relocating from out of state. The goal of relocating from out of state is just better schools, and they want to be in South Florida for all of the amenities that they offer, right? And I had to have that conversation. Hey, the market's still high. Oh, we see a lot of home price drop. And sure, send those over to me. Yep, agent listed it too high. That's why I dropped down to where it should have been. Still in this market, there are a lot of licensed agents that don't understand that the market will level itself. It will set its own price, right? And you don't have to do it for it. The market will speak. And so she found a really nice property that she loved, and it was listed at fair market value, around $900,000 price range. But by the time I did comps and everything, I knew this is going to go for $950,000, $975,000, although it's listed at $900,000. And I set that expectation in advance. But I wanted to see the community as well, because it was in a walking distance of a synagogue. And that's really important for a large clientele as well. And so I figured I'd go there. And then also the agent was part of our brokerage as well. So I was like, I'll go build a relationship, and it's right around the corner. It's not that bad. So I went over, and sure enough, just offers are just out the door. Of course. And so I have this conversation with her and say, yep, like I told you, this is where it's going to go. And for most people, they just, including myself, right? Prior to just being educated on it, just black and white. I want a conventional loan. I have to put 20% down. How can I afford to pay $30,000, $40,000 above what it's asking for and above what it will appraise for? And, the answer to that is, lenders still have to lend in a market where interest rates are still really high. And so they become really creative in the way that they lend, all in line with, Fannie and Freddie guidelines, right? Nothing of the early 2000s. And so I just, gave her space, let her just kind of absorb that information. And I agreed with her. She's like, I can't be in this market. It's just really too hot. I agreed that it's a hot market. Then I just followed up with her in 24 hours and said, hey, you should speak to a lender. This particular client is, I want to find a house first. I love, then I'll speak to a lender.
So I want the house to be gone by the time I'm ready to buy it.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't really work like that. So I'm like, you need to speak to a lender regardless. So you just know how much buying power you do have. So just kind of a planning accordingly for that. And so just letting her know that there's different products out there. What do you mean? You might not have to put 20% down. You can put 10% down, still maybe avoid some PMI, right? Or have a very low PMI. Like we just had a client that had PMI at $19 a month and took the rest of her deposit and used that to pay above and over ask, over appraised value of the home. And was able to secure that without bringing any additional money to the table. And a lot of people just don't know that because they go to, a lot of big box, banks that, unfortunately just don't have that wiggle room or don't choose to have that wiggle room, where you have like local brokers, boutique places where they have underwriters right there on staff that can get you squared away and that can work out a deal. And they want to work out a deal as opposed to just feeling like a number at a big bank. And it's like, hopefully somebody will call me back and let me know what's going on.
Right? Yeah. And so for you guys, PMI, it's purchase mortgage insurance. What that is it's you're paying in, right? In the event that you were to default on your loan, they use that purchase mortgage insurance, right, to account for those people that end up defaulting and they have to foreclose on those homes. So it helps offset some of the expense for the bank in the event that you guys don't end up making your monthly payments that you're supposed to do, and they have to take the property on. So obviously you don't really want to pay that because it doesn't go towards anything for you as a benefit. It 100% goes towards the banks. And so the way that we're talking about it and what we always look at is, hey, maybe you have to have it, but let's try to identify a way that you can reduce that number as much as possible so that you're not just paying into this thing that you're never really going to benefit from. So that's what it is.
And the overall bottom line too is you want a house for $1 million, $100,000, $500,000 home. Most of us have a number that we're comfortable with on a monthly basis of investing in that purchase, right? And that number is all inclusive of everything. It's your taxes, it's your insurance for the property, and possibly your HOA fees for the property, right? And then this PMI insurance. And the good thing with speaking to lenders in advance is giving them your financial portfolio. They are dedicated in meeting that out-of-pocket expense that you're budgeting for, right? And so you might be able to find, you in your mind you do basic mortgage calculation. I'm looking for a home for $800,000. You get in touch with a lender. It's like, no, you could buy one for $1 million, and we can still keep your price the same. And here's how, right? Again, all within Fannie Freddie guidelines and things of that nature. So nothing shady or weird. These products are government underwritten profit. Not regulated, government regulated products, right? So, you're not getting, Tony in the background is gonna slide you some money on the table and you just gotta pay him back in interest, X, Y, and Z. A lot of people get really scared when you start telling them there's other avenues outside of paying 20% down. What do you mean? I've never heard of that. So there are different avenues that you can explore to do that, with the main focus on get with a lender, run your finances, and see what your purchasing power is with how much money you want to spend on a monthly basis.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Like at the end of the day, if you guys are looking to buy a home, the very first thing that you need to do outside of reaching out to a realtor is talking with a mortgage professional. And the reason behind that is you truly need to understand what your buying power is going to be so that you can maximize whatever you're going to end up doing, and you end up understanding, hey, what can I afford? And what's going to be my loan type? What's the strategy that we have to utilize to get me into the home? Like stuff like that is very important. So you have to do that part up front. Even if you're not really ready to purchase, there's still some benefits for you doing that up front as well, because what the lender can end up doing is they can look into what's going on with your situation, right? They pull your credit, they end up seeing what's going on from like a financial perspective, what's going on from your debt to income ratios, what's going on for your like your credit score, right? And if there's opportunities for them to improve your credit score or for you to improve your credit score, they'll guide you and say, hey, if you pay this off, it will help you out. If you do this, it'll help you out, right? And so it's little things like that that can actually set you up for success when you're officially ready to buy. And so like, we often tell our clients like, hey, we want to get you talking with a mortgage professional as soon as possible because they're the experts in making sure that you're going to be able to get that loan. A lot of people say to me like, oh, my credit score is great, so I'll be covered. Or, oh, I have a bunch of money, so I'll be covered. Those are just small elements to actually getting approved. but like the lender knows everything. You don't know it. I don't even know everything, right?
Yeah.
I know enough to at least communicate some pieces of it, but that's their space. And so they're the ones to execute all of that for you. And so like, it's very, very important. Like you guys, I can't stress it enough. Like speaking with a mortgage professional up front is always, always the first thing that you need to do. Of course, well, okay, let's say the second thing you need to do
Right.
after calling us first, right? But then that's the second, and we'll connect you with somebody that we know, like our preferred lenders. We've got a great group that we work with, but even if you're not talking with them, talking with somebody that you know that's in the space too, like it's very important for them to do that.
And pro strategy tip in regards to that. I know everybody hears, oh, you got to get a pre-approval, you got a pre-approval, and we're, especially last year, a lot of people, I have to get a pre-approval just to go look at a house, X, Y, and Z. And I think now that everybody should have a better understanding that yes, why go look at a house if you can't buy it, right? In a market where the house is only going to be on the market for 7 to 10 days. But more importantly, you know, when you add that trifecta of speaking with a lender, right? A lender that, one, our in-house lenders, that we have personal relationships with them, right? Between us, your lender, and having a professional real estate agent is, lenders are going to tell you, here's what I can do, here's what you can afford. We're going to be able to steer you, okay, you don't want to be in this particular city because taxes are always going to be high in that price point that you're looking at, right? You might want to be in this city. Taxes will be a little lower. Why is that important? Because taxes are part of your monthly payment, right? So you could buy $1 million house on the water in city A and $1 million house of water in city B, and you can have a $500 difference in your monthly mortgage payment, right? Same thing with any price category, right? You know, $100,000, $500,000 home. In addition to that, we also using our turnkey services with our insurance representatives that we have, right? So being able to say, hey, I love this particular house. We know what the taxes are. We have insurance telling us what it's going to be. So we put everything together and work with the lenders. It's a team of us that are all focused on one particular client, and how can we, just put all of the statistics together and identify, how to move through this transaction. What is our absolute max purchasing power with everything that we've identified at this point, where most people are like, oh, you got approved for $1 million. This house is 900. Let's put an offer in for 950. And that's when you get into the whole, you really don't have enough cash to close. The monthly payments are going to be a lot higher than you think. What do you mean I can't afford a 950 house and I got $1 million pre-approval? Well, taxes, insurance, and everything else,
Factors into your monthly payments.
100%. And those are other reasons why, partnering with, professional realtors, that's just services that we offer,
And talking about where the market has transitioned, right? So it was really interesting. So back in like 2020, 2021, what was happening where the prices were going up, but the interest rates were still really low.
Yeah.
So what we started talking to our clients about were like, yes, the prices are going up, but what are your monthly payments, right? And our monthly payments in comparison to what you were paying before when the interest rates were higher were like either on par or possibly even a little bit lower, right? Maybe a little bit higher in some situations, but like at the end of the day, it wasn't as drastic as the price were increasing, right? Now we're at a point where the interest rates are going up. But at the same time, right now, there's that shift that's starting to happen in the market where we saw last month, a little bit more inventory starting to come into the market, right? And so hopefully what that starts to do is that starts to make a little bit of a shift on the prices, not necessarily saying that the prices are going to just plummet down, but like where we're in those situations where there were 20 offers on every single property and the price was just skyrocketing because of that might start to dwindle down a little bit for these buyers and still get them into a reasonable monthly payment for them. And so like it's definitely something to think about. So as a lot of the headlines are talking about, everything I'm hearing is like recession, market crashing, all of that stuff. And so people are trying to get prepared for that. I mean, it's still, if you see what's going on in the market from our side, you'll see that it might be an opportunity for those monthly payments to come down. And the way that I always think about it is like, what would you be paying for rent, right? And compare that for what you would be paying in your mortgage, right? And you would hope that there's a benefit to you having a mortgage versus having a rental property, right? And so there's several factors that come into play there, right? So like we said, the monthly payments, but on top of that, the fact that your mortgage is never going to increase, right? Granted, there's the only things that could possibly adjust that would be your taxes and insurance. Right? But in general, it's not going to increase versus your rent. Like some of our clients have had rental increases from $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, which has been insane. And, you know, I always told people before, like, man, I would buy over renting. But some people didn't want to do it, and they got into a situation where now their rental rates are $1,000. Like, they're asking for an extra $1,000 on top of what they were paying last year. That's insane. Yeah, it's definitely insane. But
to jump in on that, and you know, listen, everyone, this industry, real estate, and everyone who works within it, it's a smart industry, right? So you have, I feel I have a group of friends that are currently renters, right? Who would be, well, I have this or that going on. I couldn't afford a mortgage anyways. Well, again, and not to pump up, lenders, but they're being really, really creative right now to start helping people because they know that, right? At the end of the day, let's just, for example, act like we all own, a lending company, right? Hey, interest rates are going up. Less people are more likely to want a high interest rate and look for a home, but also rent is going up, right? And let's say you have a pool of renters that feel like they cannot purchase a home because maybe they have a late payment on their credit report, or they only have 5% down instead of the 20% that's needed, and or maybe they're just independent business owners, right? And the way they do their taxes, it doesn't show a lot of income, but they do make a lot of income. Whatever it may be, that those barriers that people are putting up to say, hey, I'm most likely won't be able to purchase a home. I would say that I would push that to the side and reach out and talk to lenders, because in this industry, lenders realize that, hey, we're having a shortage of people that are well qualified, but just don't want a 5 to 7% interest rate, right? What do we do to help serve, a broader audience, right? Maybe people who, might have a late credit score, might be independent business owners, and lenders are here creating products for that particular demographic, right? And so I would say, don't disqualify yourself. Who are you to disqualify yourself, right?
Yeah.
Let somebody else tell you no.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I think right now you hear a lot of yeses, because lenders have to keep lending. They're in this business to make money, and they have to figure out how to get you a loan, and that's their overall goal. They want to lend money.
Yeah, one of the most interesting programs that we heard about recently, and it transitions along with what's going on, right? So we talk about the great resignation, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people leaving their corporate jobs to go into being independent contractors or owning their own business, right?
Yep.
And so one of the products that we heard about and has been being used is how they can utilize your bank statements, right, to end up approving you for a mortgage, right? And it's very important for somebody that is an independent contractor or self-employed in general, right? So that because the way that we do our taxes, right, we have a ton of expenses that offset a lot of the income that comes in. However, there are programs for these buyers that are out there that are looking for that. So like, if you guys happen to be a buyer that is an independent contractor, self-employed, there are programs for you. And so definitely speak to a mortgage professional so that you can still get the house that you need or that you're looking for, because there's a great opportunity for you and they have programs for that. And so I think a lot of people assume, oh, I'm self-employed, therefore like I can't get a house. Or they do the opposite and say like, I'm self-employed, I make all of this money, so therefore I should definitely be able to get a house. And it's like through the natural programs, right?
Yeah.
And then once that gets reviewed, it's like, oh, well, you've got this, like the way you do your taxes shows that, yes, you make X amount of dollars, right, in revenue, but then with all of these expenses, you make this much.
Yep.
Right?
And there are products out there that just want to know how much do you make
exactly
in revenue. They can care less about your expenses, right? You work out your own expenses. Really good point. We have put a handful of clients and are working with clients right now who are pre-approved, who just work for themselves and run their own businesses, and they're approved through those products, right? Really good point. And it just goes to show, like, just because someone has told you no, or you read an article, you need to have a 790 credit score, 20 to $80,000 in the bank, that's just not true. You can still purchase a home in today's market, enjoying this hot market, and be competitive in this hot market with the products that lenders have to offer. And that's what they're there for.
One of the other programs, now that we're talking about it, that has done really well for some of our clients is, like, over the past, 2020, 2021, has been traveling nurses.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And it was interesting because we had one lender that said no, they couldn't do it. We had another lender that said, don't worry about it, I got you.
Yeah.
Right? And so we've been able to put several travel nurses into homes. And, you know, like a lot of the concern there was either talking about like what they were getting paid and if that was going to stay consistent, or even where they were getting paid from, right? But thankfully, like one of our lenders had a great program for these travel nurses. And so we were able to get them into the home that they were looking for as well, which is really awesome.
You have these lenders that are adding this personal touch, right? Kind of meeting you in your space. If you're a person that just jumps from one contract to the next contract, and you've been consistently doing that, and you have the funds, and you have been saving, you have a low debt to income ratio, right? They see that, as opposed to throwing those numbers into a calculator and saying deny, right? They're actually like, we don't want to use that calculator. Who are you? Tell us what's going on. Let's figure out what you got going on in the background. What is your career? How are you making money? Oh, this actually makes sense. Let's get you a place. And so a lot of people, I hope you're listening to this, the ones that, you know, you might be from, you know, might be an independent contractor working from one job site to the next and had like a 3-month furlough, things of that nature. I'd still recommend that you reach out to a lender, talk about your financial portfolio, because there still are ways that you can, you know, purchase assets in this crazy market, you know, without having this clear-cut 850 credit score with $1 million in a bank account.
Exactly.
A lot of people, I feel like, are missing out on that, and then are being forced to spend more money, to your point earlier, renting, right? When they can literally have a mortgage for less than what it costs to rent at this point.
And when they're renting down here, they're paying first, last, and security, right? Let's just say they have a $300 rental rate, right? It's $9,000 up front. Like for some people, that could be their down payment, or at least a portion of it. And so it's not always more advantageous or beneficial to rent, especially with how much money you have to shell out up front.
Exactly.
Same or similar.
You get
to a
your
down
little
payment.
waterfront view condo,
right?
With that down, with your first, last security. You know, that could be your down payment for a condo. Ride the condo out for a couple of years, sell that, purchase the home of your dreams if the condo isn't already. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many options out there, and I would rather, you know, change the type of home, be in a condo, and, you know, 3-bedroom, two bath, a nice view, pool, everything's included, it's immaculate. And I've gotten that by using what I would spend for first, last, and security to pay somebody else's mortgage for a year or two, right? And yeah, it might be a different type of feel, it might be a different type of vibe for the moment, but you're actually a homeowner. You own property, and you now have an asset that you can leverage, right? You might not ever have to sell that. That can just stay and provide generational wealth, or it could stay just part of your portfolio of investment properties. You can rent it out, use it for a family, a relative. Depending on what city you in HOA, you can Airbnb it out, right? Things of that nature. And you might not have to leverage that asset. You can stay there and save the amount of money you would, the extra $700-800 a month you'd be spending on somebody else's mortgage and rent. Save that for your down payment for your next home. You know, that's the formula of how most people are, you know, owning lots of properties, right? Heck, you get a condo, you end up getting an investor loan, and, you know, purchasing another property. Yeah, you can't beat that.
And that, like, that's one of the things that for first-time home buyers that I love talking to them about, because it's not always, the way that I explain it to them is that you don't have to hit a home run on your first house.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't have to be your dream home. Number one doesn't have to be your dream home. The way that I look at number one is get yourself into a position that you're no longer paying rent. Right? A space that works for you. And that you're no longer paying rent, because then you're starting to build wealth, you're starting to build equity in that home, right? And then what you end up doing, what most people end up doing, is they move over to house number 2, which is their step up, right? So you transition from house number 1 into a home that's more in line with what you would want long term. May not be your final house, but it fits what you need at that moment, right? And then you're there, and maybe you end up transitioning from that one to the next one, or whatever it may be, right? But like, I feel that people end up missing that the real way to win in real estate is to get out of being a renter, get into being an owner, and getting that first space, right? And again, not
most
necessarily
ideal
feeling
place.
like, and not feeling like you have to hit a home run on that one.
And just so everyone's paying attention to that example too, when you mentioned leaving that first home and going to your step-up home, right? You don't necessarily have to sell that home to go into your step-up home. And so when you, in that scenario, right, you have two people, A and B. You have A, who's waiting for that ideal home. And in that time frame that they're waiting, call it 24, 36 months, right? They're paying someone else's mortgage, right? It's like leasing a car.
Mm-hmm.
You're just paying for it and giving it back to someone, right? And that's person A. Person B is saying, this house isn't the best, right? It's not my ideal, but it's livable. I feel comfortable eating here, having family, friends, and hosting in this particular home, right? Mm-hmm. It's fine. This person immediately goes into home ownership with all the benefits of that, right? They have an asset. The asset can appreciate, right? You can get an equity line of credit. You can do a lot of things being a homeowner, right? More importantly, by the time you get to month 36, so example A and B, in month 36, A has been spending a lot of money on principal and interest on the mortgage, right? And also, just as such is life, right? I think everyone has a goal in life is year over year to continue to make more revenue or make more income, whether it's pay wages, side business, whatever it is, you expect to make more at that particular point, right? So B is making more money just like A is. A is just saving it for that dream home. What B is doing is saving that now for a down payment for that dream home. So A and B are gonna buy their dream home at the same time in this scenario. The biggest difference is B still has a primary asset because they don't have to sell that because they've saved up. Just like they were spending less money than A this whole entire time because they home ownership, right? And they were saving. Where A was spending more money to pay someone else, and then they had to struggle to save every bit they could after that, just 3 years later to get to their dream home, right? And then, but B now has not so desirable home A that they can either rent, they can Airbnb it out, and they can sell. And then if they're both going for the same exact dream home, $1 million home, right? One may be able to put $300,000 down because they sold the first property. Where this one can only put $200,000 down, right? And so B is always continuing to keep winning, and it starts with just securing a home and securing some type of asset immediately. And to start leveraging your finances where you're not paying for someone else's investment, you're paying for your own.
100% agree with that. And so, that's something that I've been preaching for a while. Of course, like it's been even more extreme over the past 2 years as we've seen rental rates go up. But it's something that's been tried and true for decades. That like owning is one of the best ways to increase your overall financial wealth for yourself and for your family. And so people just need to, we try to tell our clients, but this is why we're doing this right now, is so that you guys can understand it as well, is that the benefits of owning a home is that you have the opportunity to increase your overall financial wealth at the end of the day. It's been proven, right? All the numbers show that that's the way to go. And
just reach out to us and we'll create that pathway of helping you get there. Right now, this market, I believe rental reached its all-time high probably summer of last year, right? So you have to think that there's a large group of you who are still locked in from that contract, right? And what does it look like, 3 to 4 months from now when it's time to renew that? And what I would say is now is the best time to start looking at, how do I find a home? Something that I'm comfortable with, right? That, is going to be equal or less than what I would potentially be paying for rent. Reach out to us, let us know, and we can, make those connections, leverage our network, and help you come up with a solution where, you now have an asset and stop paying someone else's mortgage.
Because you don't want to get hit with that 60-day shock, right? That 60-day notice of, hey, are you renewing or what? And oh, by the way, we're also increasing your rent by $500 or $1,000, right?
We have a mutual friend that we both saw this morning, and I told him, he's a renter, and I told him, I said, October, when it comes time to renew, you're going to get sticker shock. You know this, right? I think so, this and that. You should start saving 7 months ago. Like, if you're not complaining about rent, you will be. Like anybody who's paying rent right now, unless you're renting from family, you're still probably complaining because they're like, hey, you're still going to pay me more because I can make double.
Exactly.
So if you're not complaining about rent and you feel like I'm in a really good spot, wait until it's time to renew. Because fortunately, this was the year for investors and their rental properties, right? It was the year for them.
They made a killing.
They invested in the last 10 years, and they finally got 1 year in the last 10 years where they were like, I'm able to make, at least another 30 to 40% increase on return on my investment through this rental property. And so if you're not feeling the pain you're going to when it's time to renew, unless you're just in a really awesome situation, And that's really good for you, but for the majority of everyone. You have a lot of people in Florida lobbying now. There's a lot of people in New York lobbying, the legislation and trying to put some type of ban on the increase of, rent right now. So it is a real thing, and just, leverage us, come reach out to us. We love to do it. We love to sit down and talk and figure out how we can help you obtain an asset as opposed to paying for someone else's asset, and put you in a position where you're renting, a year or two, you're renting your own asset, not, renting from someone else. And
going into that conversation, so I actually spoke with one of our past clients yesterday, and it was a situation where he had bought this house, and he loves the house. Everything's going great with that. But now, like, his original goal was to get house number one, then get an investment property, right? So now we're looking into that, or at least having the conversation. Of course, we steered him to one of our preferred lenders so that he could get pre-approved and make sure we understand what budget are we working with. But it's just awesome to see that person transitioning from number one to like, all right, now what can I do from an investment perspective, right? And it's going to be a great opportunity for him because he's got house number one secured. He's got equity in that house. We talked about how he could maximize or capitalize on that equity. And one of the opportunities was going to be a cash out refinance for him, right? So you do a cash out refinance, you capitalize on where the market is currently, right? And he takes that money to end up buying him an investment property.
Which investment property product, right? Using the lender,
cash flow loan.
Yes, this is called a cash flow loan for those of you who are current homeowners. If you don't know about the cash flow loan, reach out to us. We'll explain to you the details. But it's the easiest way. I mean, easiest way. You're like, hey, I want to invest, and you have lunches and talking to friends. I want to invest. I want to get a house. I want to rent. This is what I want. Not just do it. Let's do it today, and let's find a place. And in 30 days from now, you will literally have a property that you can rent out using investor cash flow loan if you own your home. And I would say, just to be super safe, 9 to 12 months at least of home ownership at this point. And you can you have at least 20% to put down. Right? That's all you need. And you can literally we can start looking for you an investment property immediately.
And the cool thing with that is like what they actually look at is they say, okay, what's the status of this property, right? What are you paying for it? What are your monthly payments going to be? And then what's the rental rate that you can get from it? And they will do that analysis.
They do that for you. The lender does it for you. You actually have someone, you point and say, I love that house. I think I can make money off of it. I want to buy it. The lender says, sweet, we'll give you the money for it. As long as you have 20% to put down, we'll give you the money for it. We're going to send an expert in to make sure that you can get the rental rate for the amount that we're going to charge you on a monthly basis. They're doing the work for you. Obviously, we're going to tell you well in advance, right?
Of course.
We're going to have you squared away. But it just feels good that the person you're borrowing money for is actually going to, it's part of the due diligence check to make sure that you can make money off of it. And you can't beat that.
And honestly, that's actually the program that he's looking at using. As we were talking about it yesterday, I was like, this would be the perfect program for you to utilize here, right? Because it's an investment property. You end up doing it that way. You don't have to worry about anything else. And you should be able, I was giving him a couple examples of opportunities that he could get. And I'm like, the numbers would make sense for these properties. And so why not reach out to the lender and see what we can do on the refinance side so that we can get you approved through this cash flow program and lock it out and get you that next property.
That's so fun. It's so simple. It's so easy, man. It's so easy. And then they're literally just going out and buying more property. It's something that you think is like, you have to have millions of dollars in the bank and get loans and do all this other stuff. And it's literally at your reach. And you just have to pick up the phone, reach out to us on social media, contact us directly, and we'll be here to coach you through it. And it's a lot easier than you might think. Just leverage our expertise, leverage our networks, and we'll be able to get you squared away.
100%. Cool. Good, man. Well, I think that's all we got to talk about for today, right?
That's it.
I mean, we could always talk more, but I don't know if they need to hear everything that we've got for you guys. But thank you again for enjoying another episode of Real Estate Unscripted. As we always talk about, we just sit down here and honestly just have an open conversation about what's going on, just to educate you guys on the real estate market. But it's never anything that we sit down and write down on paper or try to strategize what we're going to talk about. We will look to you guys. If there's something that you guys want to hear about, you can send it in and we'll sit down and chat about it. But other than that, Real Estate Unscripted, 100%. Thanks for attending, guys.
Have a good one.
See ya. Cool. Easy enough. There was a stumble on one word, but it's all good, huh?
Dude, like Mac's drink was empty when he did that.
Oh shit, yeah, that's a good point. Edit.